Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 46 of the Reptile Rejects podcast. Tonight we got on Dave Levinson from Custom Scales. And he's also part of the Trap Talk Network and did the Herp House Rock podcast in the past. I'm sure a bunch of you have already heard him on multiple podcasts. So, no, it should be a fun conversation, although it looks like he might have pressed something or it might have logged him out. So unless it's just frozen, but me and Dom can.
I don't know, man. He's got a good look though. Like he's just frozen in place.
It's a good place for it to freeze. I'll just text
he's
him
not
and
reacting.
ask him
to... there's a second David Levinson.
Maybe I'll just kick the first Dave Levinson out. Oh, there we go.
There you
go. I think.
Oh, still frozen. All good. How about we just start with our updates, and while David tries to figure out how it works, or how it's working on his end, why don't you start with Mike? Anything new on your end?
Nothing too new for me. I just got more newts growing out. Everything looks like it's breeding. Like I think all the pairings I'm doing are probably going to work out. Yeah, maybe. Okay, it keeps logging off. You talk, Dom.
All right, sounds good. I'll talk for a little bit. So on my end, I had my fifth clutch drop today. Nice, complete disaster again. I think I'm officially having the worst season I've had in probably like 6 or 7 years. Had one of my jungles lay 17 slugs. I mean, 3 of them have red in them, but they're all too small and not doing great. And this is a female that has now laid 7 years in a row, which is a lot, but she always lays no matter what. So whether I breed her or not, she will lay. So a little bit disappointing. And on another note, I had a fun occurrence happen last weekend right after we did our podcast. We actually lost power at my house. So being the nice and organized person that I am, I waited half an hour thinking the power is going to come back. It didn't. So then I'm like, it's okay. I'm smart. I bought a generator like 5 years ago that's still in a box. I can pull it out and make it work. Took about an hour to pull it out, put it together, do all that kind of stuff, like remove the brackets on it, add the feed, add the wheels, figure out even how to get it started. So I'm all happy. I got it all started. Now I've had no power now for about 2 hours. My incubator is at like 86 instead of 88. I'm like, yeah, it's time to put it back on, right? When I bought this new place, it came with a generator plug. So I've got an extra complete panel downstairs that's made to plug a generator directly on it. So I'm like, all good, man. Like I'm really well organized. Then I look at it, and of course, I don't own a wire to connect from my generator plug outside my house to my generator. So I go get the wire. By the time I finally get the freaking generator going, it's been like 3.5 hours. So now I'm really well organized that if I lose power, I can get the generator going in literally 2 minutes. So probably should have tested it before, but there was part of me that's like, I don't want to open the generator because, if it doesn't have any fluids in it, it's just going to last forever. I don't need to maintain it. But anyway, I got it going. My incubator dipped down to 84 after about 4 hours. So not great, but I don't think it'll affect too much. Like it went down to 84 for maybe the last 2 hours. And then I got it back to 88 and it was fine. Really cool thing about my generator though, is just like a little generator and it was freaking powering everything, man. Furnace of my house, my dehumidifier, my fridges, my oven, my freezer, and the snake room. One line of plugs was being powered by it, so which was enough to, get the like the space heater going, the incubator going, and I think I had one racket cage going too, which is really not necessary because realistically, just with room heat and it's enough to keep everybody nice and safe. You put it at 80 and you're good to go. So I don't know. It was kind of interesting. Had to test that out. I think it went well overall. Except for that, anything new? Again, clutches are not going so well. I'm losing eggs in my incubator, which really sucks. I usually never lose eggs. So
probably
I think I'm going to end up with like
thing then maybe.
It could be, but
or
just a
even the
lot of rotting.
females
Like
moving may have, I don't know, thrown off their hormones or something, causing them to have eggs that aren't as viable. Maybe.
maybe, and I want to blame it on the fact that I moved, but I'll be honest, a lot of the signs that I tend to see before I had moved, I wasn't seeing. So I was already feeling like a lot of the things weren't happening. So, I mean, I still got 5 clutches, but out of 5 clutches, 2 clutches were full slugs, right? Which I right now have produced more slugs this year than eggs, which is really not a good sign. So I don't know. It's just a crappy year for me. I've had a lot of other good years, and I guess it's good that I don't depend on snake money to survive because I'd be poor this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for that, that's kind of what's new with me.
Yeah, it's probably good that hey, at least it worked out on the year you moved. So no matter what, it would have probably thrown something off. So at least it's kind of moving in that
Yeah.
direction.
Or it does the opposite, right? Like, how often do you hear of people saying, like, are they moved and had the best year
Yeah,
ever,
yeah. I think
right?
I think I
So,
might have. I think I lucked out just how like I moved where like the Kluberts were down in formation and I moved and brought them out. So then they didn't really feel it, and then the boas. I don't know. Like now they're actually breeding. Now they won't stop breeding, and I don't know if they're gravid yet, but none of them are eating. Like all three males, like even the juvenile male, no, not eating at all, and then the female refused food. Like I hadn't fed her in a couple weeks just because they were breeding, and she's kind of chunky anyways because from a few years of not having any babies. So now now she's not feeding and she's looking thick. So I guess we'll see in September, October. Hopefully there's something, but I don't know.
is
It
it the right timing though for
Yeah,
breeding for
yeah, yeah.
the
No, they
boas?
generally
Yeah.
breed anywhere from February to June, basically. So they were locking up in March, and then they locked up in April, and now they're just locking up every day. So I don't know if maybe they've just taken already, but they're still kind of in season, so they're still kind of breeding, or if she's just gonna have like a later litter. Because when I got her, she dropped babies in late October, or dropped slugs late October, like 30 slugs. So that kind of, and then you kind of go 6 months out ish is how long they take to gestate. So basically around now or the end of the month is kind of when she was probably ovulating anyways. So it's kind of is the right time for it to happen if she's going to keep doing on the same schedule. So that'll be exciting. That'll
Yeah.
be cool.
Just by curiosity, when it comes to live born, the infertile ovas, are they still called slugs with boas?
Yeah,
Or is there
we
a
just call
different
them
term?
slugs because they're like basically like almost like, well, depends how long they've been in the female, but they're like kind of like just the
Yeah.
egg yolks basically that come out.
No, and I get it. I just always wondered,
Yeah,
like, is it a different terminology? Because I mean, like, you can't say you're having a clutch of boas, right? It's a clutch of eggs, and so it's more a litter of boas. So I was wondering if it just was a different things for slugs, but
yeah. I think Dave would know. Dave, is there any other term for boas than slugs?
Uh, I might have missed the first part. Is this working though? This is on my phone.
Yeah,
you
that
look
that sounds
great.
good. And if it
Perfect.
doesn't upload, that's fine because I can just take the YouTube, so it's all good.
I apologize again. But what was the boa slug question?
Dom was just curious.
So I was,
There you go.
yeah, I was just wondering because you know how there's different terminologies for pythons and boas. So you have a clutch of pythons, you have a litter of boas. Is it a slug for both boas and pythons, or is it unfertile ova? Is there a different terminology for in the boa world, or is it just slugs?
Still slugs, but some people call them sweet potatoes, but that might be every part of the hobby. I'm not sure.
All right,
That's a
fair
good one.
enough.
Maybe we'll start using that.
Yeah. Or it's a
Cool.
boa
Well,
thing.
Dave, it worked out pretty well actually. We just ended up doing our updates and all that. So I'll just let Michael talk about our sponsor real quickly, and then we'll get started with you if you're ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Beauty.
Alrighty, Reptile Rejects is proudly sponsored by Cornell's World, one of North America's leaders in reptile caging and reptile supplies. You can always reach out to Cornell's World over email or on social media, and where you can visit their website and place your order today for any custom PVC cages, custom glass terrariums, spider robotics equipment, vivarium electronics, and even ReptiRed heat panels, along with ZoomEd, Arcadia, all your other major reptile brands. Greg West at Cornell's World carries it all, and he's always happy to do custom stuff for you. So reach out or see him at a local show if you're anywhere in Canada. They put on many shows out in Alberta, and also they were just in BC this weekend. So if you were in BC, I hope you went out to the BC Reptile Show. I know I'm on the board for it, but I was not at the show this weekend. But I'm sure they had another fantastic show, and then also we're sponsored by Greg and Tyrone's other business, which is the Western Canadian Reptile Expo, WCRE.ca. You can pre-purchase your tickets for the upcoming Medicine Hat Show or the big show in August in Calgary, where you'll see a ton of breeders. It's the biggest reptile show in Western Canada in Calgary in August. So it'll be the same weekend as Daytona. But yeah, it'll be a fun time. So go pre-purchase your tickets, or if there's still tables left, go buy some tables or booths. Alrighty, Dom. I think we're ready to go.
That was a nice long commercial. I feel like we should double our price for that, man. You go all out.
Yeah, usually I'm a bit better.
Dave,
it's been a couple weeks.
There you go. Dave, thanks for coming on. Thanks for lending us some of your time. Appreciate you coming on. Really looking forward to chatting. I'll be honest, I've listened to a good amount of your podcasts. I find for me, listening to podcasts, I love personality. I love usually what brings me back to a podcast is if I like the people talking, right? If the person is annoying the shit out of me, or if they're boring, or if they're talking in a monotone voice or anything like that, as soon as you got people with personality, it just makes everything more fun, right? So I definitely enjoy your podcast. I'll be honest, I never heard the previous podcast that Michael said though. So I've heard you on MJ's platform.
Yeah.
But what was the prior one?
It was called Herp House Rock.
And do you mind if I ask you what's the history on that? What happened to that? Or you just switched to?
Well, it's so the history on that essentially, MJ invited me on his podcast back when it was unfiltered. After doing that episode with him and Forrest Fanning, Benjamin and Ryan with R&B Reptiles down here hit me up and said they would love to do a podcast full time, and they wanted me to come on and be part of it. So we kind of got rolling. And to be honest with you, I had some family stuff come up. My dad got a little sick, so it was kind of hard to go on there and have fun and enjoy doing podcasts. Took a break. The break was too long, and we never got it going again. But then I jumped on Trap Talk. MJ hit me up to come do some episodes with them, and kept the lungs fresh.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely enjoy those because you guys do it bi-weekly kind of. I know Junior's not always there because he's also super busy with shows, but you guys seem to make it work kind of thing. Even if you don't have guests, you can pull Steven, you can pull Alex, you can get William
Philippek is the other guy we like to bring in every once in a while.
Yeah. We had him on, I think, before our holiday show. So we had two shows that went back to back 3.5 hours because obviously you talk to William and it kind of just keeps going.
William, June or Jeff, those are two guys that I've had a lot of really long conversations with. When we start talking, we usually don't shut up. So, it almost made sense to have us all together because even the conversations we get to have together on those random throw together last minute podcasts, it's all just original conversations that we'd be having if we were just hanging out. And that's why I've always enjoyed the chemistry with those guys.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it is cool when you get your own guests on too. I find because you're able to get those old school boa guys too that obviously Eric and Owen, they get the Morelia people and some of the Python guys, but then you're able to pull the boa guys out of the woodwork kind of thing, which is, it's just always neat to get that kind of history download on the guys that we all knew, started the Salmon Boa project and all that fun stuff.
No, the Rich Alley podcast was awesome. Warren Booth was nice enough to set that one up. Some of the older generation guys, you kind of need somebody in their clique to give the okay. Unfortunately, a couple of buddies might have been able to set up a couple like the Craig Trumbauer one, so on and so forth. But no, yeah, I love talking boas. I don't get bored with the topic. I could talk boas every single week, but I always enjoy the challenge of jumping around to different species. Even like back in the day with Herb House Rock, like I don't think we covered a species more than once, like 50 some episodes, and we just tried to go a different direction every single week. So that's kind of like, my niche, but, I could really lean into the boa thing and do some great things on podcasts.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think actually one untapped thing in the boas, other than well, I guess Bobby Pebbles, in that I've kind of been able to hit on West Indian stuff because that's what we were talking about before he hopped on. Is I might have a litter of Bahama boas this year, but we'll see. Uh, that last time when I got her from Tyrone, she dropped slugs like a month after I got her. It's like she's not eating, and then she dropped slugs. But
Yeah,
after 2 years, finally they're actually breeding. So they've been breeding the last 2 months. So
that's awesome. I always say with boas, you really got to let them acclimate in a new area. I moved my entire boa collection last year in December, and I didn't even breed this fall more than like one or two females out of like 40 females I could have bred. The ultrasound I talk about a lot. I really rely on the ultrasound to let me know when to get rolling on certain things. And a lot of the boas just didn't really start building. A lot of them never went over 10 millimeters. So I just didn't really do any pairings for them. And honestly, I think it was just that adjustment year. Now next year, I honestly believe with giving them this year off, they'll have time to adjust. Next fall, I should have an amazing boa season. But yeah, anytime you get in animals that are bigger than subadults and boas, I always feel like it takes a couple years to really let them settle in.
yeah,
Just by curiosity, when you're talking about the ultrasound, um, it's a tool I've never used. I always feel like maybe I'm more old school on that, where it's like you just go by the feel, right? You know how things are going, you know how. But I love the idea. Like, yeah, I'm gonna say it. It feels a bit like cheating. Okay,
Yeah,
it's not.
yeah, it is.
It does feel like cheating, and I'm not calling you out in any way. I know a lot of people do it, but it feels like cheating because it's like you're almost looking into getting extra information. You're like, I almost feel like you're not supposed to have, but I love it. Like if I had an extra grand, I'd go buy myself one and I'd test it out. I'm just wondering on when you started using it, how bad was the learning curve? Like to actually learn how to use it, learn how to take the ultrasound on the snake, and actually know what the heck you're looking at. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I probably started doing it about 8, 9 years ago, and fortunately, a buddy of mine had an ultrasound, so I just was using his for the longest time, and he put a little money into it, which actually made it really easy to use. The ultrasound I have now is actually kind of a cheap model that I got for like $700, so it's not a grainy picture, but you really got to know what you're looking for. But to get back to it, Tony Antonucci with Chi-Town Reptiles, he had been using it years before I even tried it once. And, I talked to him a lot leading up to it. So I kind of had a general idea on what to do. And I kind of treated it like I would treat any other species. A lot of animals will hold at 6 to 10 millimeters for months. And, boas are no different. I mean, you talk about random species, like we use the ultrasound with womas every year. And every year we usually get somewhere between 5 out of 8 or 6 out of 8 to go. Some years I think we did 7 out of 9 one year. And they all kind of staggered out at a different time. There wasn't a cooling process. We're gonna get a little bit of a cool down, but not a true cool down like you would do with that typically. But yeah, rolling back to boas. So the one thing that was probably the best advice that I got from Tony early on is you don't want to be completely reliant on the machinery. You still have to, notice the signs, know when you should be putting things together. And, where I talk about how all these species will hold at 6 or 10 millimeters, sometimes getting in for one lock with a male, even if it's not at the right time, will start helping building. One thing I tell people that if you don't have an ultrasound, your boa season could start as early as August. And honestly, some people are still doing and getting ovulations right around now. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but these things aren't on the same cycle they would have been in South America. We're so many generations of captive bred in the United States now, in so many different climates and different parts of the United States. Like I buy animals from California, I buy animals from Florida, and I'm in Missouri. So, my climate here is so much different than these other climates that these could be a couple generations of breeding in these areas prior. So, seasons can go year round. So without an ultrasound, I encourage to put your animals together on August 1st, see what the male does. If he even tries to like go over to the female, show her any attention, you go a few days without anything going on. I like to pull them out, get a few more meals in, start again the first of the next month, and I'll do that monthly until the male starts showing signs of interest, because that tells me there's something about this female in this moment that he knows to put the effort in. He wasn't wasting his time those months beforehand. And honestly, even these boa tips, I think you can go across the board in almost any species, minus maybe colubrids where you're kind of cooling stuff down and you know exactly when your window is. But I've had boa litters almost every month of the year over my time of doing boas. Now, April is usually the time of the year that I'm going to get my most, but there'll be a staggering out of litters throughout the year if I plan things out right, and I do that honestly based on the ultrasound. Yeah, can I say one thing by the way? I'm so used to interviewing people. I'm not used to be able to just like babble on, but I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. Long answers.
Oh yeah, no, it's
Talk
perfect.
away, man. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Do you purposefully try to stagger clutches? Sorry, I'm saying clutches, litters. Like, is
You
it
know,
something you want so you don't get stuck with like 5 litters in April and one in December? Or...
no. Well, here's the thing. Any time of the year that you get an unexpected litter, an off-season litter is a benefit. Especially if you're able to sell a lot of animals, that late season litter is sometimes a blessing, because maybe your stock's getting a little low. Do I do it on purpose? No, not necessarily. I've kind of tested the waters a little bit by like different feeding cycles over the years, taking them off food for like a month and a half and then putting them back on and then start introducing males. And I've had certain things I think I've been able to manipulate a little bit, but just again, going back to the ultrasound, I can do everybody at the beginning of 1 month, and even with the ball pythons, I'll have a bunch of 6 to 10 millimeters, but then I'll have that unexpected female that maybe in August is already like 20 millimeters, and I might not have thought to pair in July. And that happened to me last season because I had a VPI snow female that I gave a year off. I had a IMG jungle aneurystic het VPI I was going to put on her that year. And I checked her August 1st and she was at like 19 millimeters. And sometimes that's too far. 15 to 20 is really your sweet spot of really getting a male in. But as soon as they're over 10, I always say you should be starting to put your male in. But I would have missed that ovulation because I probably wouldn't have paired her on time if I wasn't checking early. And she had done that to me 1 year beforehand, so I knew to check her. But she's the only female that actually drops about 2 months prior to everything else. I believe her litter when she had it last year was I want to say it was a February litter, but it might have been early March. And then I think after that, my next litters didn't come until like late April and then through June. So like I said, there's a little bit of advantage there. And, if you have a smaller collection, I don't think it's really necessary, especially if you're, only running one male to one female, that even with the ultrasound, I still typically will only plan on running one male to one female. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's cheating. But once you get over a certain amount of animals in your collection, I feel at that point you really need to have one if you want to be successful on multiple species.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you think colubrid people really need it though, or is it more of like a boa python? I feel like colubrids, you I actually just moved. That's why it's almost weird that the Bahamas are breeding. Like I've had them for 2 years, but then I
Yeah.
moved. What is it? 2 weeks into February. So I did the colubrids where I had them in brumation, and then basically just got them up to room temp for travel, and then set them up and fed them within a week of getting here. So I feel like I didn't really mess them up, but I'm just surprised that the Bahamas actually are doing their thing finally after having them in a stable environment for 2 years, kind of thing. But I guess stuff kind of just does that sometimes.
No, that's awesome. And honestly, I think the settling in, the hardest thing about boas, and then you're gonna have to bring me back to what I was supposed to talk about in this moment. But the hardest thing about boas is you need to really have patience. And when you're first coming in the hobby, there's a lack of patience. I remember when I first came in, like, yes, I did buy some babies, but I need some adults. I'm not waiting 2 years for this. I want it now kind of thing. And, in boas, where it always seems like a great deal when you get this big, beautiful animal in from somebody else, it just doesn't always work out that way. And sometimes that breeding year might get you a slug out, and that slug out could put you back 2 or 3 years with that female instead of just waiting a little bit of time. And, like I said, with boas, it's always patience. Now bring me back to what I was supposed to say, because that was something else.
That was.
We don't have to remember.
Yeah.
Oh, colubrids. We were talking
Yeah.
colubrids. Man, here's the thing about that. I remember talking to some of the old heads back in the day where they would talk about keeping corn snakes in cooling up to 12 months. Like, just in there, they got water, they're brumated, they're not losing a lot of weight, everything's fine. And then when you bring them up, you start feeding, it's like they were only in there for a couple months. Down at like some of the bigger companies down in Florida that would produce a certain amount of corn snakes to supply like Petco every year, back with Gourmet Rodent. I believe they had they either had 3 or 4 cool down rooms that they would shuffle animals in at certain points of the year, cool them down, bring them out, do the next room kind of thing, so they could stagger out their clutches all year round. Because you can manipulate them so much with brumation, I don't think an ultrasound would ever be necessary.
Yeah, and if you wanted them to double clutch, you just as soon as they lay, you pound them with food and throw a male in. Like house snakes are super easy with that too, where you can get, depending on the species, you could probably get 2 to 4 clutches a year pretty easily by doing that. But then you just got to watch out. Like, they are house snakes; they do want to eat all the time, but you still don't want to overdo the animals, kind of thing.
No, 100%. And another thing too, we're like manipulating my season. So this year, the blue tongue skinks woke up around like January 5th. And when I first started doing blue tongues when I lived in Buffalo, New York, I usually started breeding about like Valentine's Day. So this year and last year were 2 of the earliest seasons I've ever had where I've gone in and got locks around January 8th. Um, because I wanted to put a really big focus into just those guys this year, I used to cool the skinks and the colubrids in the same room and bring them up at the same time, which means I had to breed them all at the same time. So this year I actually did a side cool down room where I just took tarps and air conditioner on the wall and had like the colubrids all in that area. I had the skinks in another area, and then woke up and worked on them. And then the moment I was done breeding all the skinks, and that pretty much was around like January 28th, rolled in the other room, turned the air conditioner off, brought them up to temp, started feeding them, and I got 3 clutches of corn snake eggs so far. But last year, those clutches were a month earlier. So yeah, I don't know why I brought that up.
There had Actually, to be that's good, because I'm gonna be pairing probably 3 pairs of blue tongues next year. But
which is awesome.
So with the blue tongues, when you like, I've heard some guys like Chris, he's bred them in the past, and he talked about how he would pair them for 2-3 months, like just to make sure he hits the lock. While my boss, who I'm getting a couple one trio from, and he's bred them pretty regularly too. He has his thing of pulling them out, and then he only gets 2-3 locks, and then they go every time, basically, as long as they get for sure locks. So do you think the females, like, is it like triggering them to ovulate and then you just keep pairing them through that time? Or is it kind of like they get the job done and then the sperm kind of lasts long enough for when they ovulate, kind of thing? Or what do you think about that?
So, I talk about this a lot, but I've had, in my opinion, some failures in skinks these last few years compared to my first few years. And, my first few years, I feel like I was able to stretch a single male really far with multiple females, where nowadays I feel like I should have 1 male per 2 females. And if I exceed that, I'm going to lower my odds of even getting a couple good clutches or litters. So I think every male is going to be different. That male back then, I was able to breed him to 7 females a year and get 7 perfect litters. Cool down, I talked to Heather a lot down in Florida where they're doing everything outside, and they actually have different groups cycling at different times. And even Cheryl Matula, she lives about 45 minutes from me here. She's breeding blue tongues over there, and same thing, her season got earlier here, but she also had females that were wanting to be locked in like February, mid-February. I stopped paying attention to certain females this year when they stopped showing signs of, when they never showed me they were in their window, where he talks about staggering out over like 2-3 months. I don't know how possible that is. I just say that because, when a female's not in her window, she really fights back. And you can go to a female skink and pinch her on her lower side above her back legs. And if she goes very limp, maybe wags the tail a little bit, isn't trying to be aggressive towards you, you know that she's in her window and you should introduce a male. There was a part of me back in the day based on some of the early learning I had from like people in New York telling me how to breed blue tongues. Baby sock over the female's head so she can't fight back. Male's going to get in and get his lock kind of thing. Um, I thought even some seasons where I had low success on maybe two locks that maybe I should have spread them out a little bit more. Maybe I should have put the male in for one more lock at the end when she was actually being very aggressive, like, get that strong one in. He's got to work for it kind of thing. Otherwise, he's not even worth my time. Um, like I said, I keep tweaking the system over and over again, and I've actually found ways to be worse off at these guys. But back to what I think's good, I think 1.2 is where you want to be. I think if you go in and check your female every 2 or 3 days, give her that lower side pinch, see if she's submissive, get the male in for his first lock around then, space it out by about 3 days and get a second lock in, and then space it out by another 3 days for a third lock. You could even stagger it out. I used to do it like once a week on a female for 2 or 3 locks. I just don't like the females to look really beat up. And I noticed this year some of my females on their third lock were looking very raw in that area. And when a male, in my opinion, has a favorite side, you can put him on that other side. He's going to switch over. So I tried to tone it down to only 2 locks this year. I want to say I'm like 8 or 9 litters into the season. I generally only believe I have like 5 more good litters coming, and I locked 35 females this year. So I'm at a below 50% success rate, and it's been that way the last couple years. And I thought it was because I was stretching my males out too much. Well, this year I didn't stretch my males out too much. I still put a lot of my better males on 2 to 3 females. But some girls just didn't get there. Some girls never showed me they were in their window. There was another 25 females I didn't even try breeding this year. So the decision I made this year is if I didn't have a better year while putting a bigger effort in my opinion, I was going to start looking at the group and maybe start downsizing a little bit because I try to hold back like 10 animals back for about any species I work with every year, knowing that, there's probably going to be 5 or 10 I'm going to want to upgrade or maybe just change things out. Um, I got 4 racks that hold 18 females. I want to sell 18 animals on one rack this year, and I want to sell 10 out of the next rack. So I'm going to have to sell 28 females to upgrade what I have and make a whole rack available because I'm going to put something else in there. I might go after some beaded lizards. I have a ton of boas that would do great in that rack system because it's a bigger tub. But I really hate to say it, like I've always loved having a lot of skinks around, but until I can dial it in where I can maybe show like a 70% success rate, it takes up a lot of floor space. And, when you start trying to do this more full time, you can't have areas that take up a significant amount of room, not contributing a little bit to what the bills are, I guess is the way of putting it. Without sounding insensitive, we all got to earn our keep.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally get
And are
it.
you just doing that? So they're just in tubs with heat tape. There's no basking at all or anything.
No, so when I first started doing this, it was always just rack systems. Um, I was gonna upgrade this year and try to hang some UV lights in when the females are gravid to see if I saw any difference in the babies, maybe a little bit stronger, so on and so forth. But with supplements and everything over the years, I've never had an issue with any of my babies. And it wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago you saw more companies changing rack systems around. If I downsize a little bit more, because I use I think it's the 88, I think it's the 8018 series from ARS, so it's the window on the front tub. Um, I may use all those racks and just switch them over to a completely different species. And if I can get the skinks down to about 40, I probably would change my setup to at least have UVB on it. It was just nothing I ever needed before, nothing I used for the first like 5 to 8 years of even working with the species. And I do think you can get away without it based on just the way the hobby's been over the years. Ray Gerge has always done rack systems. I want to say his tubs were like 32 quart, and to this day, nobody has ever made more blue tongues than he has. I think his best year, he may have put like 400 babies on the ground. And, Heather, I think this year with Ron St. Pierre, I think they're going to do really well with it. I think they're going to beat that number, but that was a number that has never been touched. No one's really got that close since then. Kind of a cop out for not using it, but it wasn't something I was accustomed to, but it is something in the future as I start making changes, I will be adding to my setup.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like I know there's a huge pushing for UVB and UVA and all that kind of crap. And I'm saying crap because in my world I don't keep lizards, right? I only keep pythons, but some people are pushing for putting UVA, UVB on pythons. And can some benefit? Sure. Do they need it? I really
Maybe
don't
we'll
think
start
so.
getting hypo bredli out of normal bredli again.
Maybe, right? It's one of those things where if you've done it for 20 years or you've got animals that have been surviving for over 20 plus years without ever getting it, they breed, they live, they're healthy and all that. I feel like that's a pretty good proof that they can survive without it. Now, is there benefits? I would imagine there is, but there's also negatives that can happen from putting too much UVA, UVB on an animal, right? So I don't know. So my whole point was coming from what you just said there. I don't feel the need to put UV on my pythons, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think I ever will. Like I'm looking at it, and I don't think they need it. I think they're thriving and doing very well. So if you've been doing it for 8, 10 years and you've had zero issues, I mean, if it's proven that it has a benefit, sure, but do they need it? It's pretty easy to argue your point that they don't if they're thriving, doing well, breeding, replicating. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'll say two things on that. The first skink I ever bought, named McGillicuddy, I think I would have got it maybe like a South Carolina show. She was like my foundation animal, kind of really made me want to work with the species more. Got a male for her, started breeding, got my first litter. I want to say that she bred for 7 straight years when I got going on it. Then I kind of went to every other year. This year was the first time I bred her in 2 years, and she had 6 babies that were huge and 3 sets of twins. One of the 6 twins didn't make it. The other 5 seem to be doing okay, but when they're that small, you got to put a little bit of work into them. But long story short, that's a female that has always lived in rack conditions. I've had in multiple different styles of racks over the years as I've upgraded the animals along the way. And still to this day, and I'm not sure how old she was because when I got her, she was an adult. That animal could be over 20 years and still is thriving, doing well, able to reproduce. So, like you said, I don't think it's necessary, but, there are a little bit of benefits. Being up, so Dom Patterson, I used to talk to him all the time back in the day. Trying to talk to him a little bit more now. Like I said, I got disconnected from people for too long. But I know he was moving his females outside on really sunny days after they were gravid because he did believe that there was a benefit on that little bit of sunlight every single day for these gravid females. And up there that time of the year when he's doing his breeding, I can only imagine how cold it is in February up there if you have a gravid skink that you might want to take outside for a little bit of raise. But, on days when the sun was beating down, he was taking some animals out and he believes that he got stronger babies. Now, I don't know to this day if he's still doing that. I know he's changed gears a little less with the Northerns now, more with the Westerns and so on and so forth. But, yeah, like I said, I think there's a benefit, and that might be something I do next year after I get gravid animals. If I can do some outdoor pens, maybe on the hot days, and if the species, I can become a little more successful with the species, a little more consistent. Um, again, when skink started doing really well, I upgraded all my equipment, but the racks I always wanted to keep them in because we were doing well, making money on them, so on and so forth. Same basic concept now. If I could have a few really good seasons with them, I wouldn't mind doing like a greenhouse on the property. So I can control the temperatures in the wintertime on. Something that maybe I can put some natural sunlight in it by opening it on the top. But if I can create some kind of outdoor greenhouse in Missouri where, they're doing even better outside in those conditions, I would love to do that. But like I said, a couple good seasons so I can justify putting that into it. But if I do well with something else, I'd probably still consider getting on the project.
Yeah, no, blue tongues I think are that like they're that like nice middle kind of like they're better than beardies honestly for beginner lizards kind of thing, and they look
Mm.
awesome. Like I remember working at Rogers back in the day. Well, a few years ago. But like we got stuff from Dawn Wholesale to the store, and there were some really nice blue tongues that he just sold as normal northerns, right? And there's probably a little bit
Yeah.
of sunset going on in there. I remember one I should have probably bought because they had just like high white, just like in the bands kind of thing. Like you could see even when it was smaller, and then as I grew up in the store a little bit, like it just
Yeah.
increased and it looked really nice.
Yeah, he got some of that Swedish line stuff too. That was one of the things I always wanted to get from him, and I should have moved a lot faster, seeing now I can't get any animals from Don anymore. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I think one of the pairs, actually the pair that Tyrone has that I'm gonna try to breed for him, that one is I think that's a Swedish line. They're they're from Dawn, but well, they're from another guy who bred them, and then Ty got them. So but I think they are a Swedish line, so that'll be cool because they'll like they're some good size animals too. But yeah, no, that Swedish line stuff looked so nice when you see it in person.
Oh, 100%. Skinks are a species that I always thought would have like be a bigger part of the hobby. Again, I hate because I do so many podcasts, so I'm going to say I've talked about this before, but when Brian Barczyk went over to Australia on that trip, got to go over to Joe Ball's house, see all the mutations he was working with. Around that time, Joe Ball was already exploding on Instagram. All his photos were being shared everywhere. When he came back from that trip, he just was like, man, this is such a cool species. I think it's going to be really big here. And it was great because I was already working with him. We were talking skinks all the time. He was buying a ton of my babies. I was hooking him up with people I knew to buy stuff. It made for a really fun time in the community, which made it seem like it was really going to get there. But while the problem is there was a falsehood to it in a sense because the same time that Brian was overbuying, Bill Brandt was overbuying by the hundreds of them. I was then expanding on my collection, buying every one you could possibly buy. I was waking up in the morning. We would check fauna at like 7 a.m. If an ad hit fauna at 7:01, it was sold by 7:15. Like everybody was obsessed with skinks over about a 3-year period. So it seemed like, wow, awesome, look how good the market is. But really, there was probably about 4 or 5 people that were really inflating everything up by overbuying and building these very large collections. But then the next guy didn't really show up, like the next tier, the next group of breeders to like really be into them. And after a while, like, I was talking to Brian, he wanted to come over and look at the collection, do a video years ago. And he just wanted to focus on the ball pythons, the boas. I was like, can we do some skink content? And he's like, man, the skink videos are not getting the traction they used to. So it got really exciting, peaked, and then it just completely fell off. But now you have Heather, who's working with about any mutation you can get your hands on in the United States. She's going to have an absolutely amazing year this year, making whether it's classics or these really cool double recessives. Um, if getting all these morphs readily available in the United States doesn't help this species set off, I honestly don't think it's ever going to be there. And I think there's going to be, you can only produce so many a year based on what the market looks like. But really, it's an amazing pet animal, and I think it's always going to be an amazing pet animal. And a lot of what I do here is to produce pets. So I'll always work with them, but man, I really want more people working with that species. I've never had anybody buy them and not be happy with them.
Yeah, I think they are, and I think that's what their market is actually more for pets. Same with Euromastics. Like I know up here, like actually, well, a couple years ago, I think Don. I'm not sure if Don even fully works with. I think he has pivoted because like there was 3, 4 years ago where I swear everybody bred Northerns up here, and I think the price went down to 450 Canadian, and
Yep.
then but now I think people since everybody stepped back, I think there's only I don't know who, but like I think everybody kind of pulled back on it, so there's not as much kind of available. So I think their price now is retailing at about 450 to 550 for just normal northerns, and a sunset's probably up from there. But I don't know if anybody's actually selling them as that, or just kind of selling them as nicer northerns. But that's kind of the Canadian market, and same with euros. Like they're 350, 450 for captive bred orinates and oscillateds kind of thing, where they're that. But people are buying them as pets. Like the last couple shows, I think we've had 10, 15 people walk up to the table. Oh, you guys have blue tongues yet, or you have euros yet, kind of thing. And it's like, well, we got these zebra skinks that are captive bred and really cool, but no, you're gonna have to come back for the fall shows if they're still available by then, kind of thing, right? Like, so there's definitely people up here looking for them as even like just for pets kind of thing. So that's kind of nice to see. But yeah, no, they're definitely cool, and we still have the imports coming in, but I think people kind of know that they want a northern and not just an Irian Jaya or an Indonesian kind of subspecies. But although those are really neat too, right? Because then you can actually get some fresh blood and get the exantic morphs, and I think it's the tannin bars have the exantics in that. So it's kind of neat to see that.
Tannin bars, I think, have xanthics. I think you're thinking also the Holomaharas.
Yes.
They get xanthics in all the time, but I don't believe anybody's ever successfully bred Holomaharas. I know the importing companies would get gravid females in, and even some of those gravid females would have xanthic babies, but there was one xanthic or tannibar that did come in, and we did get our hands on it, and ended up being a fail to thrive. Outside of that one, I'm not sure if another one's been found yet. I'm sure because, they always collect from similar areas. If there was one, there'll be another someday. But, yeah, I think that one that came in, it was a gravid tannin bar. She had her litter at the guy's place, and one of them ended up being an xanthic. And we just happened to get our hands on it. But, yeah, that was a bummer. I really wanted to see that project through. Just didn't do well.
Yeah, no. It's kind of weird though how like the Indonesians still haven't taken off, even though they still come in. But I guess that's because they're kind of that last remaining bit of the wild caught market that still kind of just goes into the pet trade and not actual breeders' hands as much as it probably should. Because like they would make fantastic pets too, as a couple generations captive bred.
No, I agree. I never really liked their gangly bodies when they come in the country. I kind of like that full body of a northern. I've looked at some over the years. Like I said, I've never been overly tempted to work with them just because, a lot of the stuff you see doesn't look good. But, there were a couple guys in the United States that were doing like really unique IJs. But yeah, it's kind of something that fell off. And I think a lot of that has to do with the amount that still can come in the country. I'm sure when they cut it off and say you can't, there will be a jump up in price, like what happened like in the monkey tail skink market. But yeah, kind of like Amazon Trebos too. Like, man, they're so freaking cool, but like so many of them come in the country. I think there's been a lack of interest outside of like some of the unique projects like the tigers and the red line stuff and the leopards. But yeah, that's a species that I think just too many come in the country, so nobody really works with them.
Yeah, I think they're picking up though too. Like I know, well, I've seen some nice ones at the shop, but they're coming along. Like I'm seeing the imports and that I think that kind of not necessarily brings the price down because there's guys out in Quebec that are at least a couple of them that are getting top dollar for like even just like tigers and stuff. Like they're getting $1,000, $1,500 for some stuff that like you're like, isn't that like a like the guys that usually buy wholesale are like I don't know, $200-$300, and then they're like, well, we're getting $1,000, $1,500, $1,200. It's like, okay, well, maybe you just keep doing that. That's good.
I mean,
right?
there's a reality there, man. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just gonna say, like, I want Amazons, but I'm gonna be real bougie about it. I'm gonna spend $1,500 a piece, and I'm gonna get the best ones around because I'm gonna have a few of these here. I want them to look so far from wild type, it's not even funny.
Oh yeah, no. Tyrone has like gravid red calico from Don that he bred to. I think it was the only male he had ready to go because he has a few other reds kind of growing up. But yeah, no, that'll be cool to see what pops out of there. They're definitely a thing of the future, I think.
Yeah,
you could always take. Oh, go, Dave. No. I was going to say, you could always take a page from the Green Tree Python book where even though there's a lot of wild stuff to come in, they made their own niche market by creating designer hybrid mixed chondros that are worth like 10 times more than whatever is imported, right? So, which again, I'm not for it, but they made their room, man. They made their space, and anything wild caught coming in doesn't impact the price of what they're doing, right? It's kind of an interesting way of doing it, right? Like if you look at the other species you guys are talking about, I mean, I don't know. They made their niche and made it work.
Yeah, no, I think green tree pythons are just kind of like one of those iconic looking animals in the hobby that we all remember. Those animals drooped around a branch when you saw them at the zoo. Like, it really left an impression. So, as an adult, you're going to want the nicest, shiniest silhouette of that animal you could possibly get. And with these designer morphs you can do now, my buddy Chad Hulker is all in and obsessed. He did a breeding loan years ago on a female he got in that ended up being a really nice designer female. He got back a 1.2, raised them up. I think he went out and got another male for his females, and he's got 2 clutches on the ground this year. His first clutch, he hatched everything. They all looked amazing. They could be these designers like you're talking about. But he is, like I said, he's been a ball python guy for the last 20 years in the hobby, and he's done some amazing ball python stuff. But like, having like a green tree python project run like that is like a true passion piece. Like, you look at it differently, you treat it differently. There's people willing to spend $10,000 on those things is why they're always going to be $10,000. And, the day somebody doesn't do that, things will change. But, people line up for those animals and you're on waiting list and sometimes you're begging to spend that kind of money with a person. And I've never seen that in any other community.
Yeah, no, it's wild because like the
Yeah.
the colubrid community
I'd
is not
argue
even
to say
close to
all
that.
Python communities spend those kind of dollars. Sorry, Mike. Go for it.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's just like the colubrid community doesn't really do that. Ball python community, like I'm sure you know that too, Dave. Where it's like I think that market is well, I guess that market is kind of settling down compared to how it was,
Uh,
but
Well, everything has settled down compared to what it was a
yeah,
minute ago. Um, you're right about the ball python thing. There is a throwing money at that industry, unlike other ones. There's more money that cycles through the ball python community than any other community, times probably 3 or 4. Um, but that game plays different. That you have to spend money constantly to reinvest if you want to keep up in the game. Where green tree pythons, that $10,000 animal is truly a long term investment because there's never really a big market fluctuation in that community because there's not enough tens being produced. You price accordingly on the quality of the animal or the quality of the lineage. In ball pythons, it's a turn and burn. So yeah, there's a lot of big money spent, but spent for different reasons.
yeah, for sure. That's a good Trumbauerism there. We keep the tens and
Yeah.
not the fives.
Yeah, love that line. That is definitely one of my favorite lines, and I'm going to keep that in consideration because I know I'm going to want to work with more locality stuff in the future. But man, when I produce a nice animal, I always want to line breed it as much as possible to make another one even nicer. It's hard not to keep the nines and tens.
Exactly. Like even with I got the Wild Rose Pass subox, and I think he actually started that line, and it's like because they're actually I learned from when we had Brian Box on doing an Alterna show and a West Texas show. He talked about, well, yeah, Davis animals are like for subox at least they're orange. They're because of the rocks. They've kind of grown. They are more of a reddish orange animal in that area, so that locality is already going to be like that. So now we can only just example kind of bring more color to them, right?
Yeah, the one thing that I struggle with that because, by the way, I love the species. I'd love to actually get out and see them in the wild someday. But like, we always talk about it. If it came from this road 9 miles deep, you breed that to another animal that's within a mile range, kind of thing. But they're so incredibly variable all through that range that like it's not like you're focusing on like a certain like width in your bands or like a certain tone of orange. I find that ones coming from the same area again are so highly variable it doesn't like throw away the idea of still just kind of keeping it isolated to that area. But, if you really wanted to maybe focus on a true look, why not breed one from a different area that maybe you wouldn't normally do if it looks closer to what you have already?
Yeah. Are you talking about the Alterna or the Transpecos?
Alterna.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was talking, well, yeah, like with Alterna, they're just so variable. Like they can look like this, but they could also look like every other locality too, depending on the litter kind of thing, right? They with the subox, they seem to be a little bit more not exactly the same, but they're still. I'm sure there is some kind of change. Like my male is a bit more orange, where my where the females are a little more tan with a little less red coming through. But yeah, no, the Transpecos are definitely a favorite. But I know if Dom were to do something locality other than his gelatins, he would probably do Alterna kind of thing because they're just even just
I've been
normal
wanting to
Alterna,
do.
fantastic.
I've always wanted to do Alterna. I know, so Shan does Alterna, but what I like about the Alterna is that I like how locality specific people are, and I just think that's cool. But I also love the idea that you could breed a 9 mile to a name other locality because I don't know them. And it doesn't matter because you're not creating a cross. You're just creating an Alterna, right? At that point, at least you're just creating the same of the animal. So you can sell just a gray band, like, and there's zero issues with it. Just don't add the locality to it. And at that point, it's just a gray band, right? And it sells still great. You're probably not going to get as much for it, but there's nothing wrong with crossing. But if you cross the localities, now the big question is a 1 kilometer square even enough to call a locality, or should it be like a 10 kilometer square? Should it be a whole county? Should it be like that's all up for debate.
But that's the thing is
But
you could like depending on the animals you could just say oh it's a Davis County because Davis County's huge or whichever county you could theoretically say that as long as they're both from within that county kind
yeah,
of
fair
thing.
enough.
I just don't think people do that as often. Like I think some localities people go into like the kind of more vague county ordinance, while others like with Alterna and that they go exactly like it is from this road, it is from this mile
Yeah.
marker.
But at
Yeah.
least it's all the same species, right? And that's what I respect about it. It's not like if you're breeding a retic to a dwarf retic to a like from the 4 or 5 different species or green trees where you're breeding all these different species together, right? The alternas they're all gray bands. They're all the same thing, which
Yeah.
is you're not muddying the water.
No. So, one thing that community could have did, but, the ship has sailed, but like other communities have done, the breeder's name, like, we talk about Bob Applegate animals, we talk about Craig Trumbauer animals. The breeder's name should be really linked to it because a lot of these guys even went and collected it themselves. This is their founding stock. So, I kind of like the idea of that if they would have maybe branded it a little more that way compared to everyone just saying it came from this road or so and so forth. But again, the problem is, I always talk about I love mutations. So, I really love the hypos when it comes to the gray bands. I would want to probably have some stuff like that around. I wouldn't not want to work with the other stuff, but I hate to say it, I really do like some of those mutations, and I'd probably want to mess around with it a little bit. I'd be doing what you shouldn't do. I'd be focusing more on designers and less like the purity of the game.
Yeah, but that'd be cool. But that's still pretty neat, right? Like you gotta have fun with it, right? You got to do it for yourself, kind of thing as well.
Yeah. But
So what is it? What was I gonna ask? Oh yeah. So like, what do you like work with? So like me and Dom kind of know, but like what else is in your facility other than like say northerns and and that type of thing?
um,
Because obviously you do boas and I think you do some colubrids and you do some pythons and that too.
yeah. So, well, how about this? So I'm full swing in my breeding season. Actually, I've already come to the end with a lot of stuff. So what I've been able to successfully breed this year, ball pythons, of course, good for me. Blue tongue skinks, getting litters on the ground from that. Um, 3 clutches of Woma pythons have hatched out. I got 2 more clutches cooking. 3 clutches of children's pythons. I think I ended up at like 27 babies. Pueblans laid eggs. Corn snakes have started laying eggs. Honduran milk snakes are being bred right now. I do have 1 litter of boas coming this year, maybe two, but like I said, I only put a couple pairs together. Um, what is it? I feel like I've made some other species. So I know I'm going to try to get up to like 10 species bred this year. Sand boas, we have ovulations for sand boas, Kenyans only. Um, and man, there's kind of like just some miscellaneous stuff. I got some Mexican black milks I've been raising up. We got some boiga at the shop, but we haven't tried breeding them yet. Um, I got some matlocks raising up right now. An Angolan laid a clutch of eggs the other day, and we got one more Angolan clutch coming. So yeah, and then there's some other stuff. But things I have in quantity, it would be corn snakes, boa constrictors, ball pythons, and blue tongue skinks. Everything else, I probably only have about 10 of the species. The only thing I do have a Brettles het stonewash female I've been raising for years. With at some point I was either going to get a hypo het or something to put with her. I do love the Don Patterson stuff he's done over the years. I'd almost rather just get those compared to going this long game to get there. I'll end up picking up a hypo het stonewash, I'm sure, at some point. Yeah,
Nick
that
has
female's
enough loner males. He could probably send one your way.
well. So that's a good question because I keep on talking about not being able to get things from Canada anymore because when it comes to a lot of Australian species, I'm unable to get them in, at least with blue tongues. Are carpet pythons and certain things
Well,
still like
as
flowing
long as you
freely?
label it as a variegata, you're probably fine. Or as the
Oh,
Okay.
wait. If you're talking about moving from the United States to Canada, it wasn't for the longest time. I think this year is the first time that one or two people have gotten them across, and I think Don is one of those persons.
Okay.
So it is not easy to do. It was pretty much completely blocked. It's always been legal to do. The problem is on your side, your fish and wildlife is a hit or miss. People keep blocking it, right? But it makes no sense because I can ship an animal it's a CITES two appendix one, no, CITES one appendix two, or CITES
it's just
two,
CITES 2, Appendix 2.
it's CITES two. So like we can ship it across borders from one country to another. There's nothing special about the United States. We should be able to. You just have special rule through your fish and wildlife that makes it really hard because you don't want to go through all that just to be denied at the border. So,
No.
but as far as I know, it worked. I think it did work this year for some people.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why that all started because, this was years ago it all started. And then I feel like about 4 or 5 years ago it was kind of getting enforced. I think the only stuff that was coming in through Buffalo, New York, I want to say. But yeah, I guess I didn't know that it was more of us just rejecting it. I thought it was just kind of a mutual agreement.
No, well, actually, I think it's, what is it? U.S. Fish and Wildlife told people that it was always in the Lacey Act, I guess the Lacey Act says that they can basically enforce whatever other country's law they want to enforce. So Australia obviously says they have never legally exported anything when there's actually is legal paperwork for a lot of species. You would just theoretically have to link your animal back to it. But there's also zoo animals that have been released, and in Europe, you're obviously zoos are allowed to sell to the public to an extent, and even in the U.S., I guess you could theoretically get zoo animals if you go through proper channels, kind of thing. So not easy, but it's doable, I believe. But either way, it's the U.S. I think it's U.S. Fish and Wildlife kind of playing police for another country when these animals legally came into the country in the first place, kind of thing. But yeah, no, Justin Julander's had those issues where he brought in stimmies from Europe and then went to re-export the babies that he had imported like 5-6 years prior. And they're like, oh, we can't issue these permits because we don't know how it's going to affect the wild population. Was literally the
Yeah.
words. And then they said they didn't have the record of them coming in, even though he's like, here's the CITES paperwork you guys gave me to approve them to come in. But it
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
So, talking before about different variables that really stopped the skink market from taking off, not being able to export them was such a big part of that. That's even a problem that Heather has. There's a lot of people in the Asian markets that really want to buy the albinos. but she can't get them the albinos. So, like I said, we'll see if the United States market could sustain the species. But yeah, if we had the world market, it would be a completely different ballgame.
Oh yeah, because actually I was talking to Stephen Woodward down in Arizona, and yeah, he was talking about how he used to send stuff to Hong Kong all the time, and now they can't really do that anymore. So I guess
Yeah,
that's probably how Don used to get offload most of his. They probably never really came to Canada. It went with his Morelia or whatnot to Japan and to Hong Kong and whatnot.
yeah, no, I know it definitely hurt them not be able to bring them to the United States, but like you said, when the United States got had to cut everybody else off, it really opened up a window for Canada to be able to ship to the Asian markets because we couldn't do it.
Yeah, and I think they're CITES 3 now, but that still means almost nothing. Like it's I think CITES 3 basically means it's like you just kind of say that you have it and it's going across. Like it's less than CITES 2, but I don't know. It makes no real sense to have it. They should just probably have CITES 2 and then CITES 1 for stuff that's even harder. But they had to add a third
Yeah,
section because I think they added knobtails to it as well. Some just to help restrict it, kind of. I don't know. I don't know how it
yeah,
restricts it, but
I think with Craig Stewart, he bought a bunch of blue tongues and then started getting out of them when he couldn't export them. Same thing, I believe he started downsizing on his knobtail collection because I think he wasn't able to export anymore. Um, you know, my expansion in blue tongues, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've always had that hoarder mentality, have as many as possible, but like, we had a customer in Hong Kong, like you were saying, that was willing to take on hundreds of babies a year, and an agreed upon price. So the idea was, man, let's produce hundreds a year to fill these orders. Now I still believe that I can easily sell 300 blue tongue skinks in the United States market, but I want to say 97% of them will go to people for pets, and the other 3% might be for breeders. Like I feel like it's very rare that people buy skinks anymore with the idea of breeding, and I do think that hurts a little bit because when you get more people in it, they're going to want to buy more. They're going to expand on what they're doing, and that's going to benefit the whole community. But yeah, these are literally all going to the pet market.
yeah, yeah. No, I can see the good and the bad in it, kind of thing. At least there's not as much competition, kind of going up. Not that competition's a bad thing, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's
I don't
probably
mean it as a bad negative. I worked with the species because, like you were saying, so much better than a bearded dragon, so much easier than a bearded dragon. Um, But like I said, I was always very content. I was fortunate when they went from 150 to 175 to $450 down here, because like I said, those were the times that we put a lot of money into the equipment and other things that we did with the species. We went on and bought a lot of stock from a lot of people in the community. Like I said, there was a lot of really good things because of that. But even then, a lot of those animals when they were 450 were still a lot of them went to the pet community. There's people that are willing to spend 650 just for a nicer looking pet. If it had some oranges, if it had some reds on it. Still today, you'll sell a nice red for $400 or $500, but a lot of them are just people want a prettier pet.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So with the actually, I want to pivot to sandboas quickly, just because
Yeah.
I've kept sandboas since they were my first snake. I still have my first pair. Do you find them almost like the Antaresia version of, even though I guess they probably aren't technically boas, but they are, right? Or one of those like
Yeah.
weird species or groups of animals. But I find I could probably breed my female every year, and she would give me a perfect litter every time. But I don't. Like I've done it where I bred her 2 or 3 years in a row, give her a year or two off, then do a couple years, and then give her a year off, kind of thing. Because
Yeah.
they just seem like they seem like they fit that Antaresia that could probably go every year. Although it's probably best if you do give them the odd year off. But have you found the same thing where they'll probably go every year for you?
So my experience is only producing them last year for the first time. It was a species that I kept off and on, but never really got to the point of actually breeding them. But I bred three females last year and got three ovulations. I've got one ovulation out of the three females so far this year. But again, those were also ovulations that were very staggered out. I want to say every litter was 3 months apart on those three females. and they all have their own male I'm using for them. But the only difference from last year to this year now, I proved I can do it, and I had a bunch of stock I already put to the side. I got a bunch of stuff breeding this year. I think I actually have like 15 females that were able to breed this year, where last year we only had three up the size. Last year was kind of a prove it year to make sure I wanted to keep on committing to it. And, again, I think it's a great species for the pet owner. And I also think it's a great species for breeders because, even though there's not a ton of mutations, man, a lot of the mutations they have are very sharp.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I want to get more. Like I finally got another pair of. I think I got like an anery striped female and a albino visual male as like another pair to raise up finally. Because I should have held back from probably I should one of the first litters I had. I probably just should have held every baby back kind of thing to raise up and produce because they move like they're fantastic beginner snake. And I guess if you had enough over like can always wholesale them kind of thing. It's not the end of the world. They're one of those easy animals that pet stores and stuff can move. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, like what I really want to find though is some actual like OG line uh, Roy Stockwell nuclears. Like I know there are probably not too many of those hanging around even up here, but it would be neat to find just some plain normal bright orange and black Roy Stockwell nuclears would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate when the hobby loses things like that, and you'd think they'd always be out there somewhere, but there's a lot of communities that things are lost forever. In boas, carpet pythons, I'm sure, like, get it when you can. It's just not always going to be there.
Yeah, like I'm only 24, so like Roy, I think got out of it when I was back watching those snake bites videos when Brian was showing the blue tongues and that was probably 10, 15 years ago or something. Like that
Yeah,
was now
literally.
that because that's when we had the forums and everything was like that, and I think we still had the Canadian reptile forum classified thing, and Roy Stockwell was on there still, even in '09 and 2012 ish, kind of that kind of era. So like I only missed that opportunity. Although I don't think he shipped it all even back then. Like I think you kind of had to like you'd probably have to find a buddy there to send them back to you. But yeah, no, that would have still holding my fingers that maybe I could find some.
Yeah, no, I've always liked the Holloway stuff. I like all that reduced pattern stuff. I like putting the Holloway with a splash, with the GX, with the paint, and like really reducing it down, almost like flakes of black when you work with the Mannery stuff. Um, it's funny, like, every species you got to treat different on what you're doing, and where in some species you're trying to add pattern, in that species you're really trying to reduce the pattern down to almost nothing to make your highest quality animal. But yeah, no, you're talking lineages lost, man. Even in boas, I talk about like this Summit pastel stuff back in the day. I had a really awesome female. I never held anything back from her. My one buddy, Jay, bought some stock from me, and still to this day, he is producing them. This year, I'm going to get some back because he bought that animal from me, I want to say like 10, maybe 12 years ago, and you can still see that like OG look like my female was in his babies today. And I really love that because you can't find a lot of really good Summit stuff anymore.
Yeah, like I know the boas like you guys had all that pastel like the different pastel stuff going on, different hypos, and like because boas I think you can still probably get like wild caught stuff coming in. Just it's not really as heavily looked at as it once was. I'm guessing kind of like ball pythons.
Yeah, no, you don't really hear a lot of boas coming in, and like when the labyrinth boa popped up, Jeff Ronnie got a call directly from the farm, and he took advantage of that opportunity and bought that animal. Um, when a buddy of mine, John Carlson, about 4 years ago, he sells to a lot of the pet stores in Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, and he needed some boas in, so he bought, I want to say maybe 100 babies out of 1,200 that came in unseen in the bag. And he found two possible mutations in the bag. It looks to be the same mutation twice, but he's calling it the Jumanji boa. When I was out there for a show in Fort Wayne, Indiana recently, I went over to his house with the ultrasound because He tried breeding the females last year, was unsuccessful. He still had males in with them today. So he kind of, just out of curiosity. Plus, he just wanted to see how the thing worked, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do when we were there. But those females were not building. But there was another female that was getting ready to drop, and we put the ultrasound on her. And I'm like, man, it could just be me, but I think it's slugs. And she ended up slugging out. Bummer she slugged out. I'm glad the machinery didn't lie to me, but when I was showing them, I didn't play dumb, but I was like, man, I'm hoping it's just an issue because I'm not really seeing skeletons. And that's also a really cool thing about the ultrasound. You can see the heartbeat, you can see the developing skeletons in the boas. You know whether or not you're going to get a slug out or if you're going to have some good babies. But in that same breath, there was one year I went in there and I took the ultrasound and put it on the female where I knew there should be babies. I saw a perfect skeleton, and that clutch or that litter gave me one healthy baby, and the rest were slugs. So I just happened to put it in the right area that I thought, oh yeah, good for me. No, I was just looking at the only live baby in the whole litter.
Yeah, boas seem to have you found that where you'll get years where you get litters like that where you get a couple babies and then a ton of slugs, or does it seem to be one offs kind of here and there, or you just never know? It's just boas.
No, like I said, I do think boas can be a little difficult, but I definitely don't want to scare people off the species. Once you have an understanding of your animals, you can be very successful with them. I find that some of my worst years is maybe when I should have known to give an animal a year off. Sometimes when I put a male in too late because maybe I wasn't paying attention to the female and the ultrasound said, hey, you're almost too late. I'll get the male in a little late and he'll overstimulate her, get her there, but maybe he didn't get the proper locks in when he needed to. Um, again, just the cheat code. I got in a opal diamond hypo jungle from my buddy, an adult female, 8 years old and never bred. I brought her in, and just as I brought her in, she started developing, and she got all the way up to 19 millimeters. So I cut her off of food. I had no intentions on breeding her that first year. I didn't want her to keep on developing because she could still ovulate and slug out. So cut her off of food. She reabsorbed. Awesome. Done. Same random thing. So I told you I'm not really doing much with bows this year. That snow litter that I got last year from a VPI snow female, I wanted to give her this year off, but I still fed her steady all through the year. She slugged out 4 weeks ago. Never wanted to put a male in, never put the ultrasound on her. But this chick, every year, if I don't take her off of food, she's going to slug out or she's going to ovulate in a positive way. So she's bred for me 4 times. She's slugged out twice, and both those were years I tried giving her a year off.
Dom has had that with his one big female jungle before, where he can't give her a year off.
I've had more than issues with. So I have one female jungle carpet that has now bred 7 years in a row.
Okay.
So she has produced something 7 years in a row. And after the year 3, I wanted to give her the year off, even though she was healthy. And she still produced a clutch without being introduced to any males. I think the last introduction was 14 or 15 males, and she produced, 3 fertile babies and 20 plus slugs. And the fertile babies were from retained sperm from the prior year before. And and now she literally laid this morning again, but this morning was the first time ever she's laid a complete garbage clutch, which was all slugs. But she produced again, and now this is her 7th year in a row, which is insane because that's starting to be a lot of clutches. But this one was a garbage clutch. I don't really know how to take it. And she was bred. I did witness a good amount of locks this year. So not quite sure what to make of it, but some girls, man, they just will produce every year. So you might as well pair them up if they're going to produce slugs anyway, right? That's just my mentality. If you've got that snake that just will not take the year off, I think you should just breed it.
No, I do agree with that. The main reason I wanted to get my female the year off this year is because next year I had an even better male I wanted to use for her. So I thought, hey, give her the year off. I'll be better off. Now I'm in a position where, I talk about it. I'm going to use the ultrasound and I'm giving her next year off until she doesn't give me a choice. But I take, yeah, like I said with boas, there's been multiple occasions I've taken females off of food if they just keep on building because I know there's a potential of an ovulation without a male being introduced, and I don't want to try to breed every animal every year. I kind of cycle through like half and half. Like if this half of the collection breeds this year, I'll breed that half next year, kind of thing. Um, but in a lot of times, I'm also limited to my males. If I had more males, I'd probably be better off. But so when you said this year's clutch was a disaster, was it full term babies that were just failed to thrive, or was it another slug out?
So she laid 17 eggs of, I'm going to say like 10 of them are obvious slugs.
Yep.
7 of them are boob eggs, which have veins in them, but are half the size, which is telling me they're not going to make it. They're all going to go bad in the incubator within 3 to 4 days, is what I'm expecting. And there's maybe 1 or 2 that are too small to be an egg, but that still look like an egg. You know what I mean? And they're not yellow when you put a flashlight to it, but they're also not bright red. You know what I mean? So my assumption, I put about 6 or 7 eggs in the incubator. My assumption is the full clutch is all slugs.
Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Jeff Galewood did a short video where he showed a hognose egg that was like yellow, but there was like the teeniest little vein. And he put it in the incubator and checked on it. And I want to say it was a few weeks later, he did another one. You could actually see more veins developing. So there's sometimes I'll put those yellow ones in there just in case, even if I just see the slightest little vein. And honestly, I started doing that because of talking to him.
So
But
I agree, but when you get, you know what the difference is between when you get the slugs that are like almost banana shaped, like tiny,
oh, yeah.
narrow, long, where
I'm
it's
not
like
putting
it's
those in the
obvious.
incubator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the ones that have an egg shape, and I've hatched out tons of boob eggs. Like those ones often are good eggs, right? So, I'll try them. The only problem is like it just ends up being like within a week you're just like removing all the moldy, gross eggs that have just died right away, right? So, or that never had anything alive. But yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot.
No, I get that. Hey, give me 14 seconds. I'm going to get a phone charger. I didn't plan on using this thing, so before it gets in a creepy low stage. 2 seconds.
Yeah, no. I think after this we should get him to maybe see what he wants to, what his boa collection's kind of tilted towards and what he really enjoys keeping.
He actually hasn't even said what type of boas he keeps. The only other thing that I was thinking of bringing up is I'd like to talk about incubation for his Woma eggs because he seems to be pretty successful.
I think he lost the first 2 clutches this year, but now he
maybe I shouldn't bring it up.
but then I think after that he was all good. So you never know, that could be a fertility thing. But yeah, no, that, and then we should definitely hit on kind of what he likes about boas, and then maybe go into what he thinks the market's kind of going towards in terms of morphs. Because I think when we get Dan, if we get Dan on, we can talk to Dan about kind of the Canadian version, because Dan does like the high end boa and ball python kind of stuff up here. So he would be like, it would be like good to kind of gauge it off, because Dave keeps some pretty cool imperator morphs.
Yeah, and I was listening to talk about his different morphs, and like some of those words I couldn't even figure what it was. Should we all turn on our side to be like him?
No. I don't know why I didn't do that. I'll just do it a little differently.
I guess I could change the layout of this. I think I can change it.
I love that Michael and I would. There you go. No,
does it look good on your end? It looks the same on my end.
No. We can just leave it like that. It looks funny.
Leave it like that. This is expected out of me. This is perfect. Yeah. So I did eavesdrop on you guys. You guys want to talk boas for a little while?
Yeah, let's talk boas, because I know
boas, and then I want to hit up incubation on your Woma eggs. So those are the 2 topics that I'd love to chat about.
So Woma eggs this year, I went back to old methods. I did try 2 different containers this year to see which one I liked better. Like every single year, my first clutch this year, the female rolled like 10 of the 11 eggs out. And of course, those 10 eggs, I ended up losing them. And then my next clutch, I had 6 eggs. I got a little water on one because I was gone for a couple days. la-di-da-di-da. I ended up only hatching one from that clutch, but then I went 10 for 10 in the next clutch. I'm at 11 for 12 looking good in this other clutch that's on day 55 right now. And I want to say I'm 10 out of 12 still looking good on the ones that are on day 52 right now. I do a vermiculite perlite mix, um, 4 parts bedding, or So the problem with the water thing, like everyone always like weighs it out. I've never weighed it out. I've always been like by feel. If the bedding feels good, I'm good. But like I said, maybe I'm not the best to have advice from this. I've failed at a lot of womb eggs, man. Like I'm trying to get better, but the beginning of my season, I'm a little unprepared, I guess, and just I make a mistake. I'm either too dry or too damp. One thing was out of my control this year with her rolling them out on me when I was out of town, and they may have sat there for a day or two before I got home. And the funny thing about that is, I was literally at the show and I looked at my phone and my memories was, hey, I had a Woma clutch last year, and of course, on the exact same day she did it again. But I suspend everything over the bedding. I don't put the eggs directly in the bedding. I do the old school way with those things that cover the lights and the ceiling panels, cut them into shapes, put my little wire end pieces underneath at his feet, try to raise it up a little bit. I typically will squeegee off the water back into the container for the first like 2 or 3 weeks. Once I get past like day 30 or like day 25, I then start wiping the lids off every day. I don't let any condensation happen at all. And that usually works out pretty good for me. I don't know why I allow the condensation to build up early on, because if I'm not there to wipe it off at least every 3 days or squeegee it off, it can be an issue. But, I have actually probably dried more Woma eggs out than drowned more Womas out over the years, because I've always just underwatered my bedding because I was too afraid. And honestly, I was playing it dumb. Mike Schultz, 45 minutes down the road, he breeds Womas. He uses the Sims boxes. He put coconut chip in the bottom, suspended the eggs over that, and he did great. My other friend, she would do them in water, suspended over water. She'd have the container tipped at an angle, so the condensation would kind of roll off and not directly on the eggs. She was very successful. Another conversation I had was the 3-layer system. Dry layer on the bottom, wet layer in the middle, dry layer on top, eggs right in the bedding. Sounded amazing, worked for him. I dried out a bunch of eggs my first year I tried that. So the amount of Womas I've killed over the years, I'm really ashamed of myself. It's probably one of those species that like I just almost like to fail a little bit because I keep on tweaking things because I was so worried about losing maybe 1 egg or 2 eggs in a clutch, and I was so determined to get to 100%. But I've accepted it. I'm just not going to be a 100% guy on eggs. I'd be very happy with 80 to 85% like in the early days. This year, with the way the incubator is looking right now, I'm probably only going to have a little over 40 babies, and I probably killed about 20 eggs this year. Brutal truth, man. I'm maybe not the best guy. Yeah.
Experience is worth a lot, right? Like, and knowing that you're still not doing it perfect is also a good way to go. Like, and the reason I'm asking is because I hear it from a lot of people. A lot of people struggle with Woma egg incubation, so I'm always curious. And hearing the amount of clutches you were having, I'll be honest, I assumed you had it down, but. But like, I'm not saying as an offense. Like I've been incubating.
Offense, buddy. I should have it down by now. I just, what am I doing over here?
Full offense.
It's offense taken. Like I've incubated Morelia eggs, tons of clutches every single year, and this year I'm doing like horrible. I think I've lost about 50% of eggs in the incubator, and I've traditionally done between 90 and 95% hatch rate on all my clutches. So every now and then, sometimes shit doesn't work, and you really just don't know why.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not that it's impossible. Just when you have something that works, just don't change it. I like to tweak. I got to stop tweaking. That really is my joke. I give people advice and then I don't follow my advice. I gotta just have faith when I'm doing. So with the Morelia eggs, what's the hang up? Like, what's the most common thing on why you would lose eggs in the incubator with that species?
It's a really good question. They're usually really easy to incubate, so I couldn't even answer that. Like the common way to lose eggs.
Well, they could just be not really fertile or not. Maybe it's not even. I almost want to think it's maybe like there's maybe some stress hormones going on with when you move the females going through cycling, and maybe that like maybe they're developing still, but some change maybe makes the eggs weaker or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking
So,
maybe it's not the incubation. It's just the eggs themselves are already kind of set up to fail. Is what I think you're kind of dealing with.
okay. So I've never really had a conversation about the stress of a female affecting her eggs, but I do like the idea of that. Tell me more about what you mean, like where you think that would affect.
So just to put the context around it is that I moved and changed houses and all within breeding time.
Yeah.
So somewhat like where you would just start being locking up. So they would be building follicles around that time. So the idea is I'd like to think that the move didn't affect them, but it probably did, right?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people are in the thought that by the time you get an egg, it's been building for quite a while, right? Like if you were to say that a snake takes the same amount of time to go from, let's say one cell to being alive, um, shouldn't a baby boa take as long as a baby python? And if you were to say it like that, then really the mother python probably is building up that baby and probably has been gestating for, I'd say, easily a good 2-3 months prior to the egg being laid, and then another 2 months or 55 days, whatever, depending on the type of python you have, right? So could the stress of a female or anything that she's going through affect the egg prior to it being laid? I would argue and say yes, because I mean, I think there's more going on, and I feel like there was a couple of people on a couple of shows that did talk about that.
I think it was.
I don't know
It
if
might
you
have been a
remember, Mike.
Mutton. I feel like it was maybe Mutton or maybe even Ryan Young or one of those type of guys. I think maybe we're talking about that. Because I think I heard that before, and that's why I'm kind of saying it now. Because like maybe even your Woma eggs, maybe there's something there. Like it's hard to say because like I remember Eric maybe or maybe it was Nick talking about how people always talk about their eggs drowning or maybe the blackhead eggs too, and then maybe the thought is that they were just bad anyways, and that just them kind of dying or looking good, but then actually not being good or something along those lines.
Yeah, like the idea if an egg dies within the first 3 days in the incubator or in the first day and it's fertile when it's laid, for all you know, that baby's already dead. Maybe it died 3-4 days ago,
Yeah.
right? And it was laid. It still has veins, and it's really not even your fault. Well, it's not the incubation fault. You're trying to fix the incubator, figuring out what you did wrong, but maybe it was the step prior that caused it.
Um. So, are you pulling your eggs apart and putting them in the incubator, or if they're stuck together, you're keeping them together and you don't mess with them?
I've done it all. I don't like to have more than 2 eggs high, and I like to be able to. Every egg has got to have an exit point. Is the best way I can put it. If it's more than 2 eggs high, for sure, I'm separating them. If they're all like kind of like like zigzags, like mountains, one beside each other, I will not.
Yeah.
It depends if they're gigantic clutches, and I will just to have less eggs in a bin. I'm also in the belief that I think you should have bigger bins and less eggs in a bin. Like I find a lot of people have issues when they put like 15 eggs in a small container. I like using like the Sterilite containers, but I don't use the 6 quarts, the next size up. I think they're like, I don't know, 12, 15
Yeah,
quarts.
they're
I
the
don't know, what are
15
they?
quart ones.
Okay. So I like using those, and I'll put on average maybe 15 eggs or so per bin because there's a lot of airspace. But I'm also the next thing I also wanted to bring up is you guys. I hear people talk about condensation all the time in a bin. if you look at the type of incubator you have, you'll notice that you have condensation only on one area of the bin. Usually you don't have condensation on the entire bin. And when you have condensation on the colder part of your incubator, which is usually only the front, because the front is a window, all the other sides are all insulated, right? So the
Yeah.
colder air is hitting the front. You're getting condensation only on the front of the bin, which I feel like it's a battle that you can't really win because you're removing the water. You're just going to get more because you have a colder side on one side, and that's why you've got condensation. So the solution should be just if you don't want the condensation, just put an insulated door instead of having a glass window in front so you can look into it. But
No, I agree with that. Now I will say, like, I do use a bigger bin for the womas, and where you talk about the heavy condensation at the front of the bin, I usually try to park the eggs as far to the back of the bin to get them as far away from the condensation as possible, just in case, God forbid, there's some drippage. At least they're at the back and they're a little safer, and that's one of the luxuries of using a bigger bin when you got that kind of freedom for the eggs inside. But I had, I always go random because you reminded me of something. So we had the first year I was helping out at Bed and Rennick's collection, there was just an absolute explosion of eggs. And he was always running his collection with 3 incubators, and I had to build 1 extra incubator. And I was at my best, I could get 4 clutches per shelf. But then I learned if I just put a 32 quart bin on there and I put 5 clutches in the same bin, I can get 1 more clutch on that level. The only problem was that center clutch had all that heat radiating in my opinion, the whole way through. And a lot of times I was losing eggs in the middle clutch out of the 5 clutches. So, when there is a lot of eggs, I do think they're putting off heat. When you get a bad egg, as you know, it's going to put off extra heat in there. It's going to add extra condensation. That's why I always say, man, it's so easy doing ball pythons. Like, egg goes bad, rots completely. Every egg around is completely okay. You don't even have to worry about getting it out of there. But with most other species, especially when we talk about sensitive ones, if you don't get that egg out of there, it is a liability for every other egg around it. And I really would rather be less hands-on, but like I said, I guess I just haven't found that perfect setup where I don't have to check. And we're gonna keep going back to womas because really, man, they give a lot of people a lot of trouble. But yeah, I'm checking those things like every day or every 2 days or every 3 days. And one thing in this hobby, and I always say it, man, you can't be fucking lazy in this hobby because when you're lazy, you can find excuses why not to spend 10 seconds checking that thing. You will never be successful in this hobby. I have found excuses in the past not to do things, and it's always led to failure.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Especially for people doing it with larger animals, even if they have another job, it's like, well, you got to make it work somehow, right? Like, okay, so you work a 9 to 5. Well, maybe you should start waking up at 5:30 in the morning and getting some work in beforehand, and doing some more at the tail end of the day, or however you need to do to make it work. Because the animals there are, well, you're their sole source of kind of taking care of them, even for the guys that do it as a side hobby or a side business, right? There, it's not their full time, but they still need if you want to be successful, you still got to put in the work, right?
No, 100%. And, that's really the realization when you're going to have a collection. Like, can you keep up with the job? And if you can't keep up with the job, you're going to have to downsize or you're going to have to find help. So, we're going to produce a ton of babies this year, and it's all going to happen at the exact same time. So, my neighbor 2 doors down loves snakes. I've already talked to him about coming on as a part-time guy just to help in the baby room because it's it's going to be a lot and it's going to happen really freaking fast. And the way breeding went this year, like everything's laying at the same time, everything's having babies at the same time. I think we're going to have like 600 babies hit the ground in the next like 50 days. And there's still going to be more after that. I think this year I'm probably going to be around 1,000 to 1,200 babies across every species I'm working with. But a big bulk of that is going to be the ball pythons. Um, I have a big collection, so I really wanted to produce big this year. This is probably the biggest I've produced in like 2 years. And I didn't even breed any of the boas, and thank God for that because they would have probably added another 200 animals to it easy this year. And I'm actually kind of relieved not to have them, but I'm also going to be really sad because boas always save the day when sales are slow. Everybody has that one species that just does it for you and just takes care of you when the other ones let you down all the time. Boas have always been that. I plan shows around how many boas I have. Like, I take more risks on how far I'm willing to travel to a show if I know I have a lot of boas. I won't travel more than 10 hours if I'm going to depend on, let's just say, ball pythons, because I don't always have the right ball pythons for that big sale. I'm always grinding out a lot of lower end sales and ball pythons, and that just doesn't always work, especially when you're traveling far and your expenses are just a lot bigger.
Yeah. Well, actually, for us, even any ball python selling is like at Tyrone's table. He's not known for ball pythons at all, and we had some at the table in Edmonton the other week, and it was like oh my god, we actually sold all 6 we brought with us because we have a table full of like everything else, like tons of like bunch of colubrids, tortoises, like we had a bunch of carpets on the table, and then leopard geckos and Pac-Man frogs and stuff, right? A bit of everything, because that's kind of what you got to do. But we sold all 6 ball pythons. They were all priced pretty reasonably, but like it was just like I just picked 6 of the, like, I think a butter clown, like an Enchi clown thing, just a GHI, whatever else we grab, like some pieds, like a banana pied and a normal pied, right? Like, and they all went, like, they're not high end animals, but they moved. So it's choosing kind of the right stuff on the table as well to move, and that can move, right? Do you actually do you wholesale a bit, or are you actually able to sell quite a bit at your shows, which is probably why you do so many shows, right? Is so you don't actually have to do that or minimize that kind of thing.
I like the opportunity to do everything. Going into this year, I guess one thing that I said kind of going into this year was, going back to the COVID year, a lot of people didn't breed out of fear that the market was going to shatter. But it ended up being the best times this hobby has ever seen as long as I've been in the hobby. And some people that just stayed on course really benefited, where other people that maybe did not. So no matter what's going on in the economy, no matter what's going on in the market, I would rather overproduce and be prepared for a good or a bad market. If it's a good market, I will sell as many at retail as possible. If it's a bad market, at least I have enough freedom in animals and having quantity in animals where I can wholesale and still be okay. So, I'm going to treat the market the same every year, but I'm just going to have to sell my animals accordingly to whatever the market's telling me once I have them.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think later in this year, I'm hoping to try to breed Pac-Man frogs, just as a little bit of, see if I want to see how that goes, producing a couple thousand frogs. But at least I have some connections that we could probably wholesale them to the wholesalers, kind of thing, and then that saves them from having to import from Indonesia, since nobody's really breeding them here right now. So
I've got a question about Pac-Mans, and then I got advice about Pac-Mans. Question about Pac-Mans. So I remember the Japanese guys telling me about breeding back in the day, and you have to put the male in the water at the right time with the female, and then hit the water with a hormone so they start squirting eggs and semen out, and it's just going to do its thing? Or is that not how we're doing it anymore? Was that wrong way?
I'm pretty sure the guy I got them from, who bred them, actually, he's worked at a couple aquariums. He now works at the Calgary Zoo. He bred actually a bunch. He bred mutants and stuff a few years ago, and then he kind of settled it back as his kids are getting a bit older now, and that. But from what I can tell, you just have to kind of cycle them. So you feed them up, and then you dry them out for 2-3 months, kind of thing. You put them in that estivation stage, and then you hit them with water, and then they should go. Because the male was definitely calling when I got them, but then I think they probably needed to be fed up a little bit, and they just weren't kind of there. So they'll call, they'll breed. So I'm pretty sure I should be fine. So now I'm feeding them up I'm just gonna feed them a bunch of tilapia and other stuff, feed them up, and then I'll reach out to them, make sure I dry them out, not too much, but apparently like almost like the full estivation, and then they should explosive breed. You just have to give them enough water that they can when they breed they'll do like a bit of a dip. Was all he mentioned
Okay.
basically. So you just have to. So I just basically set up a 10-gallon with a light diffuser, so I can have enough room for a pump underneath and enough water to cycle, and then I just put a hose across the top with a bunch of holes in it and kind of rain chamber them like that. Because he was locked onto the females when I first got them, but yeah, no, they just I think I think I needed to condition the females to actually be ready to want to breed. So well, it's probably a good thing that I'm staggering it then, so then I have the whole winter to and it's probably a better shipping time too, anyways. So we'll see. I already have an idea of how I want to set up the rack systems because I've actually finally after a few years gotten kind of back into fish keeping a little bit. So now I got I'll do a bunch of sponge filters and a bunch of totes with water, split the babies up as much as I can, or the tadpoles when I do it, because apparently they'll still try to eat each other even as tadpoles, and then
Yeah.
not the end of the world if lose a few hundred of them and there's a couple thousand of them. So yeah, and then so then it should be cool. I got like 1.2, like maybe I need another male, but I think if it's gonna work, it's probably gonna work. So we'll have to see. It'll be fun either way. I didn't want to get too many and like start collecting a whole bunch because it's like, am I gonna want to get out of this as soon as I do it? So I want to test it out first before I start grabbing some other morphs and that. But yeah, no, but that's something I'm getting fully expecting to wholesale like almost all of it, kind of thing. But at that volume, as long as I like being hopefully able to move them in a way like it should be fine, and I probably could still keep an extra few hundred, like kind of let it wholesale a bunch right away, and then kind of slowly kind of scatter it, and maybe in the future have other groups going, so you get like realize how much you need to supply, and then kind of stagger it. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm just kind of I'll have to figure it out, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I say it a lot. Organically get there, man. Don't just make 2,000 of something when you never made 100.
Yeah.
You know, build it up as you need to build it up. But at the same time, it's definitely something that yeah, I know in the United States when there's wholesale available, people do jump on them really quick. I don't know how many guys are actually breeding them up in Canada, but I guess, and the only thing, and I don't even know if it's good advice, but my advice comment I made earlier. So, Galewood, when I was living with him, he was talking a lot about Pac-Mans, and the way he was going to set them up is he was going to take a bunch of PVC and cut it to like 2 inches tall, proper width, and he was going to put that essentially on a screen top, have it in a tub where he could just take it out, give it a rinse, take the tub out, replace the water, put them back in there, and do that every couple days, feed them individually and all that, and pretty much almost like the way the tarantula people do it, but with amphibians, I guess. But that was his idea, which I thought it would speed the process up, especially if you have to take care of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of animals.
Yeah, Darren's the guy that bred him. He was like, yeah, there's a lot of late nights because he would just once they morphed out, he would just keep them in deli cups with water. So you like almost every day or two, you gotta refresh
Yep.
every single one of those things because they poop a lot when they're
I've
babies.
seen that where it's like wire racks in a room and guys just had the deli cups stacked up. I could never do that to myself. I'm sorry, even if I wanted to work with the species, I would try to find a better way. And you know, like I said, being a factory worker for so long and knowing assembly lines, there's always a better way if you just look at it. So like I said, you know, you got the basic concept of what I'm saying. Maybe try one tray that way, and if it works out, but if you have a good filtration system, you may never have to worry about that.
Yeah. For the tadpoles, I think I got that down. But yeah, that's actually a good. Now you're having. I love the systems things. That's why I love having Ron on because Ron's like fantastic thinking of systems. So like I always like I got the yellow spotted newts going. So I got the not. So those are I got like a quite a few of those babies kind of raising up. Those are a little easier because you set them up in a fish tank, and I think once they get a certain size, I'll spread them out a little bit more. But
Yeah.
I'm not doing those on as big of a scale. But yeah, no, with the Pac-Mans, like now you're getting me thinking of how I could even just keep the actual froglets when they metamorphose out like in a system, so it's a quick clean rather than an individual clean everywhere kind of thing. Yeah, no, that's
Individual thing sounds really tough, man.
yeah,
Like I couldn't do it. It'd just be too much, especially for something you're gonna wholesale. That's a lot of labor going into something that you're gonna be selling for a lower price anyways. So if you're gonna do that, you got to find little ways to cut corners.
yeah, for sure.
Not cut corners, be more efficient.
Yeah, exactly. Like the point is to clean them efficiently so that they are healthy, so that you're providing a better quality item than they would if they were to import it, kind of thing.
I will say, man, like, I really hate it because I think I've said like four things that are very incriminating to the hobby between how we breed Pac-Mans, cooling down corn snakes for 12 months. And I think I said something else that wasn't great too long ago, but I've been to importers places and, the conditions are not always bad. A lot of times they're actually a lot better than you realize. But I remember one of the guys, the little toolboxes you have where it has all the little drawers for all your little screws and all your little bolts, and they kind of hang on those little hooks. They had snapping turtle babies that way, just an entire wall of just these little tubs hanging there, and each one had a snapping turtle in it. I mean, I was like, wow, that's a really cool way of doing it. And I was like, man, that just doesn't feel right.
Well, even Anthony, who's a big turtle guy involved in turtle conservation and stuff, I'm pretty sure he raises some of his babies in racks. Like, I didn't realize that was a thing until Phil Wolf mentioned it on a podcast like probably a couple of years ago now. But like, it's weird thinking of turtles in racks. Like, it's just such a weird thing, but it's a normal thing, especially for babies. Because in the wild, they hide and they're submerged, or they're not really getting any sunlight anyways. But it just still feels really wrong.
Yeah, that sounds like the same excuse of putting a ball python in a small tub because babies live in ant hills in these tight little spaces. They don't give a shit either way. And there might be some truth there, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I always feel like we have these really unique excuses why we got to do certain things a certain way or to justify why we put these animals in smaller areas. I'm sure if you gave that animal a little more area, it'd probably do a little more with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I find that with, well, I guess the colubrids I have, like I try to give stuff as much space. Like I keep my Transpecos in 4x2x1s, like just because, well, they're colubrids, they'll use every inch. But I also only have snake wise like 30 animals, so I don't actually have to, like, it fits in one room, it's fine kind of thing. And I'm trying to keep it at that scale where like the Pac-Mans, obviously, like knowing that even one female can make 1,000 babies is kind of why I'm not jumping into a whole ton of them, right?
Well,
But yeah,
I got a Pac-Man question for you. Because I've always been very fascinated with them because there's just so many different mutations in them. How do the mutations run in Pac-Mans? Do you know, is it a lot of recessive stuff?
I'm not
Like,
even.
is there a way to get a animal that's het for 10 of my favorite projects so I can justify one pairing a year with a ton of variety compared to chasing one project that I'm going to make 1,000 of them?
I feel like I think some of them are probably like incomplete dominant or dominant, maybe. I'm not too sure, right? Because you got the mutant stuff, which I'm not really sure how that works. But I think if you breed a mutant to a mutant, you get a whole bunch of different things and a variation. But I assume albino is recessive, but I also assume a lot of stuff is probably het albino, right? Like you gotta imagine that most of the importers are probably, or well, the farms overseas or even in the U.S., right? There's a bunch of Pac-Man breeders down there too. That a lot of, they're probably like corn snakes now, where a lot of stuff is probably het for albino or het for strawberry or however. Because what is it? There's like a whole bunch of morphs now with them, right? From albino, strawberries. Uh,
Talking corn snakes?
no. I'm talking about Pac-Mans now,
Oh,
but
okay. I don't know why I went corn snake for a second. I got retarded because strawberries. But yeah, no, I know about strawberry in that. My bad. I'm an idiot.
Oh, no. Well, I did mention
He
that like
walked
it's
away.
kind
I
of
feel
like
so
corn
bad. He had to get the
snakes,
fuck out of here.
where like corn snakes are het for who knows what now, right? Yeah. And especially like the non locality ones. Well, I guess even Sherman line Okeetees, they albino popped out of that too.
So now I'm making your brain as bad as mine. Let's get back to Pac-Mans. We're not going to talk corn snakes. That wasn't even on the agenda.
Hey, corn snakes are cool too, but yeah, no,
I love them.
the Yeah, I'm not even sure. I need to get a Pac-Man guy on, or you should get a Pac-Man guy on so I can just listen to
I
it.
have talked about getting a Pac-Man guy on, and I have stalked a few Pac-Man guys over the years. I had no idea that we were talking 1,000 babies per female. That's just outrageous.
You can let
How's
the
wholesale for
tadpoles eat each other a
tadpoles?
little bit.
Can you wholesale tadpoles in that industry?
I
Like,
don't
is it a
like I haven't seen anybody do it. I think I would just hold on until because it sounds like you basically raise them on like you just get frozen bloodworms and other protein. Honestly, my friend suggested maybe I just mince up a bunch of like fish, like get fillets of fish and just mince it up kind of thing, and
yeah?
that might be another idea to feed them instead of just getting an excessive amount of bloodworms. Even though I already buy
No,
it
for
for the
sure.
newts and stuff, but yeah, no, that like it's that, and then yeah, it'd be like yeah, no, I probably need to get a Pac-Man guy on because I don't even fully understand the morphs because I assume it's kind of jumbled up a little bit in terms of that. But I think there's some. I wonder. I think there is some sort of pied, or maybe I'm thinking of one of those like albino. Oh yeah, the like egg yolk things where I feel like there was a white one. It's like Ty got it, but then it didn't do too well. It was like a white albino thing that did not do too well because it probably had too many morphs in it. But
I'll have to do some stalking and some images on my phone. I know I've taken some screenshots of a couple guys that just had very unique collections, and it looks like there's God knows how many mutations with them, like you're saying. I want to say there's got to be at least 10 or 20. And like you said, there's those like translucent ones. You can kind of see the organs inside. There's about every color you could imagine I've seen, but a lot of that stuff I know is in the Asian market. I don't even know how many real breeders there are in North America right now.
yeah, like Darren had the mutants and stuff, and I think he sold off some of those adults and obviously all the babies he made with them. But I got a weird normal looking female. I think the male is like a camo or something like that, and then albino strawberry female. So like just basic, like pet trade kind of. We'll see what pops out. Like you never know. Maybe some other funky stuff pops out of there too. But they'll live a
But
long time too. Like these animals are. I think they're 5 to 9 years old, and they're pretty healthy looking. They're good size, doing fantastic. So they're another animal that people that probably don't realize. Like I'm guessing they could probably live like 15 to 20 years, like everything else, right? As long as you take care of them right.
I would like to think so. Amphibian anything is always going to be a little more difficult. A lot of room for air in those, but no, I actually don't even know what the lifespan could be on that species.
Yeah, like I'm sure a lot of people kind of, I'm sure a lot of them kind of pre meet their demise kind of thing. But yeah, no, they're kind of neat, and they're like they're a great pet that any like they're like a sandboa in terms of well, if you're afraid of them, well, you're not going to see them all the time. You'll just see their little head poking out. If you're just keeping it as a pet, they're pretty straightforward to keep kind of thing. So yeah, they're not
Well,
yeah.
what what do they sell for? Like, what is an actual true retail on a strawberry albino?
Strawberries. I think we had them on the table for I think albino strawberry. Like I think normals to albinos and camos like probably 50 to $75 maybe, but like in that range for retail for babies, right? Kind of thing. And then as you get like blues will be more like 90 or 100, and then you get the mutants and stuff being 150, then you get into the morphs that are a few $100 kind of thing. So not
Okay.
huge retail, but volume wise, even at wholesale, like it probably wouldn't be too bad.
Well, I mean, if you're getting $90 a piece on 1,000, that's $90,000. So I'm kind of breaking it down in my head that if I was going to work with that species, how would I want to manage it? Because I know I'm going to get 1,000 babies per. Could I sell 500 tadpoles for $5 a piece if they're potentially going to be worth 50 to the right guy? Maybe take that and then maybe do some with the other 500. But because, like I said, I think it'd be tough just to want to work with one project. I feel like you'd want to work with stuff. And man, even if you sold every tadpole for $5 a piece, that's a $5,000 profit on a pair of frogs. So
Exactly.
I don't know,
Or
man.
I was even thinking like, I don't know, $10, $15 wholesale a frog or something like that. Who knows? I'm not sure. Haven't made them yet, so I guess we'll see.
No, of
Guess we'll
course.
see how that works
But
out. But
yeah.
yeah, no,
Well,
like
lot of wiggle room there, man. You'll have a lot of babies to think about.
Yeah, definitely a lot of wiggle room there. Yeah,
I was wondering if they make 1,000 babies though, like mutations is an odds game, right? So out of 1,000 babies, even if you bred two normals, I feel like there's got to be some mistake in replication. You got to be able to pop out some weird things almost every other clutch. You know what I mean? Like you like just the numbers are there. The numbers producing that many, you're gonna have some weird animals pop out of there. That's all I was thinking about. And then, like within 2 or 3 generations, you could have the wildest thing, in my opinion. But again, I don't breed Pac-Man frogs, but I feel like the statistics are there.
Oh yeah,
You,
for
you
sure.
would think, well, in the Morelia community, how many mutations popped up in a collection over animals that were collected out of the wild?
A couple,
Couple? All
a
right.
couple, like you probably like 4 or 5,
Well,
I'd say easily.
for sure, granites and
Yeah,
exantic West Papuans, I guess would be 2 for sure.
that came. Sorry, are you saying that came from the wild or that popped up in captivity?
Well, I guess the reason I was asking, I was trying to put it in scale because, like you said, when you're talking about an animal that's going to put out 1,000 babies at a time, you'd think that's really going to up your odds on getting a mutation. And then I just think of like the tens of thousands of boas even that were produced in the United States with mutations really not popping up like you might think. And even like crested geckos, man, like that community went 20 plus years without a mutation, and then overnight they got 6 or 7 of them. But that was, in my opinion, just from so much inbreeding over the years. Hets were kind of flown around. Eventually, they started connecting. But yeah, I don't know if just because you can make 1,000 babies, if that's really up in your odds. Because it's still the same basic pair breeding of normals, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I guess if there was something, it'd be easier to kind of visually see it. But it's yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
I guess I'm thinking like, let's say you want to create a paradox or a chimera where it's purely like, let's say it happens once in 1,000 babies, right?
Yeah.
Like, I look at all the freaking babies that I've produced. If I've produced 1,000 carpet pythons in my entire life, I produced one chimera. You know what I mean? Like, and it was just a purely statistically, eventually I'll have to pop one out. I produced one baby with 2 heads, right? Totally like, and again, not a lot of people produce a snake with 2 heads, right? It's just, but if you produce enough babies, eventually you'll see all the weird ass things. I just feel, but I get what you mean. Like as a new mutation, if the genes aren't there, is it possible? But like every single baby that is produced is going to have broken genes and is going to be slightly different than the other ones and is going to have mistakes in its replication. So could some of those mistakes cause a mutation? I don't know. I don't know if that actually is possible, but you got 1,000, man. There's just the odds of something going wrong in a couple of them is there. Or
No,
maybe those are the ones that die.
That too. There's always that opportunity as well. Oh look, I have one with 4 eyeballs. Look at this thing. Or the extra legs.
All right. So how about this breeding? Okay, so after I produced twins for skinks, like I said, that one female gave me 3 sets. In all the years I've bred her, I only got 1 set. This is going to be a long build up to a conversation we're going to have, by the way. So I showed it to Nick Mutton, and Nick said, "Hey, hold back a pair. You will have a higher chance of producing twins from these in the future." Logical, yes. Last week on Facebook, you probably saw we brought it up last week in the podcast. Was it Don Soderberg produced a eyeless corn snake that ended up being, I believe, maybe passed on recessively, that he was able to breed an eyeless, then back, and boom, he made them. Not because he wanted to do that. I think it was more to prove it was possible. Do you think with like something like 2-headed snakes or any of that other stuff, you think that's maybe a genetic mutation that could be reproduced if you're able to get that first one to breed and then baby's back? Would it be a higher percentage, or is it just, I know it's twins, don't make it all the way apart and they stay fused and that's why it happened, but I don't know. Could you make a 2-headed snake genetically and reproduce?
I don't think anybody's tried, so I guess theoretically, like I guess Warren would be the best one to answer that question, Warren. Hopefully, you're watching. we
Yeah.
had
He
we had
watches a lot because he corrects me afterwards because
oh
I
yeah
say a lot of dumb things. And he likes to let me know.
yeah we had Warren on back in October maybe. Yeah, no, he was fantastic. We barely talked about boas. We need to have him on.
Yeah.
I feel like that. Like I'm sure you get it with every guest where you're like, "Damn, we didn't even hit on anything that we were gonna hit on."
Um, well, I'll be honest. I'm really bad at this whole thing because I don't ever pre-plan questions when I have people on, and then when I have like Bushfeld on and we talk about penises for 3 hours, not
Yeah.
because he wanted to, because I forced him to. That's not preparing going into an episode.
Alrighty, so we decided to split this episode into two. So this is the end of part one with Dave Levinson, and we're gonna have a part two released either in a couple days or next week, kind of thing. Help spread it out because I don't think too many people want to. I know I will listen to a 3.5 hour podcast, but I'm not sure if anybody else will. You can feel free to leave a comment or message the Instagram at Reptile Rejects and let me know how you feel about it. But yeah, I thought we would split it up. So yeah, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Cornell's World. Cornell's World is one of the leaders in reptile caging in North America. They make custom PVC cages, standard PVC cages, custom glass terrariums. Greg is a glazer by trade, so he's pretty good at making some awesome top-notch glass terrariums. They also carry any supplies you could need, from heat panels, heat tape, spider robotics, herpstats, supplies from Zoomed to Arcadia to Exoterra, any supplies you could need, cleaning supplies, cocoa, pretty much every one-stop shop for reptile products and your reptile needs. Go place your order today at cornellsworld.com, and also follow Greg West on Facebook at Cornell's World or on Instagram at Cornell's World. Also, go check out the Western Canadian Reptile Expo if you're in Alberta. It's we put on 3 shows a year, 2 in Calgary and 1 in Medicine Hat. And you can pre-purchase your tickets online. Go check out wcre.ca to see the upcoming dates. Medicine Hat show's coming up in late June, and then we got the big Calgary show in August. So yeah, go pre-purchase your tickets. Go book tables if you haven't booked tables yet. Yeah, it should be a fun time. And you can follow Dave Levinson at Custom Scales on Instagram and Facebook, or Dave Levinson on Facebook. And also go check out Dom's Reptiles on Instagram, or search up Dom's name on Facebook and shoot him a message if you're looking for Morelia in Canada. And you can follow Reptile Rejects at Reptile Rejects on Instagram and YouTube. Go subscribe on YouTube, hit the like buttons and comments, and kind of give us some feedback too on maybe guests you want to see. I got lots of guests lined up, but you never know. Somebody I might not be thinking of might be a good guest as well. So yeah, and you can follow me on Instagram as well through the Reptile Rejects, or Michael_Gillen, as well as on Facebook at Michael Gillen. So yeah, awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed part 1, and part 2 should be out pretty shortly. Have a good evening, everybody.